Welcome to Movies Are Life. I'm your host, Nathan Chandler, and today we are diving deep into the virtual reality rabbit hole of one of the most groundbreaking films in history. Today we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of a film that shattered our perception of reality and rewrote the rules of filmmaking, The Matrix. It's been a quarter of a century since Neo took the red pill, Morpheus showed him the truth, and we were all introduced to the mind-bending world of The Matrix. Joining me for the first time is Phil Kieth, who is here to help me talk about the film's cultural impact and explore why this film continues to resonate with audiences. How are you doing, Phil?
Good, Nathan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know I really appreciate you wearing a black trench coat, and I love your sunglasses that you have on in preparation for this conversation.
That is the furthest thing from my wardrobe, I'll just say. Got a hoodie on and a Texas Rangers shirt. So.
Yeah. Yeah, go Rangers. So, I was trying to think back. I think we initially met in Fort Worth, like post-college, but we both have Baylor roots. That's correct, right?
Yep. I attended Baylor in the mid to late 90s, and I think I got to met your wife at some point along the way, just after that, and then eventually you. I think most recently, and I like to say, I post a review, not a review, but a list of movies that I watch every year from my Letterboxd account. I post it on Facebook, and I swear every year, I did it for 3, 4 years, and every year, Nathan, you would post, man, I didn't know what a fan of movies you were. And I literally, it was like the same comment every year. I was like, yes, Nathan, I do this every year. You always say the same thing. So,
yeah.
Yes, I am a fan of movies, and that's really why I'm on, I think, is I'm not a critic. I'm not I don't write. I just watch a lot of movies, and I have a lot of opinions.
Well, we have, all types that come on here. And yeah, no, I apologize for that. Especially when growing this podcast, I'm just like, I've looked far into, you're friends with like all sorts of people on social media, even somewhere sometimes I'm like, wait, why did I become friends with that person? I'm a little bit more reluctant to do the add friend thing now, I think, versus when like Facebook like first came out or whatever like that. And so, but I will say, yeah, we're both big Letterboxd guys, and
yes,
there's not a lot out there, so it was more so like kind of a reminder, like, oh yeah, and so I had reached out to you. And I remember, I think it was probably for one of the rom-coms, and you basically said, "Oh, I'm not much of a rom-com guy."
That's usually last on my list of genres that I would list as something I watch. Just ask my wife.
Yeah, so when I was looking at the calendar, and I always like to look at when anniversaries are coming up, and I saw this movie, and I just kind of, I didn't know, if you like loved this movie or not, but I was like, this is definitely further, like pretty far from a rom-com, so maybe he'd be
I don't know.
About this movie.
Neo might object to that. Trinity. There's not a lot of calm, I'll say. There's some rom. There's not much calm in this.
right, exactly. So, but before I set up the movie, with the description and everything, I just wanted our listeners to know. I kind of almost assumed that almost everybody around our age had seen this movie. But if you haven't, there's been so much that's been done about just the deeper themes it goes into, and the theories, and the rabbit holes and all that. And we had already agreed before this conversation that this is going to take more of a kind of more like the cultural impact of this movie, versus there's been so much talking about all the theories and stuff. And I'm not really qualified to do all of that. So, I mean, that's a fair enough statement, right?
Yeah, I mean, neither you nor I have written a book, but many people have written plenty of books on this film, taking all kinds of angles. The gospel, according to The Matrix, I think I've heard, is out there. So I don't want to get into any kind of philosophical or theological reading of the movie, although you can. There's certainly some interesting aspects to it that I'll want to touch on. But yeah, I'd love to talk more just about its cultural impact and, could a movie like this be made today? I don't know. It actually has, because Resurrections came out not long ago. But
right.
There's a lot going on here.
Yes, there is. Well, yeah. With that said, let's plug in and journey into The Matrix.
Whoa. Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?
What is happening to me?
The answer is out there, Neo. It's the question that drives us.
What is the Matrix?
The Matrix is a 1999 science fiction action film written and directed by the Wachowskis. It is the first installment in the Matrix film series starring Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, Carrie-Ann Moss, Hugo Weaving, and Joe. I always want to say Joey Pants, but Joe Pantoliano. I think that's how they say his last name. And depicts a dystopian future in which humanity is unknowingly trapped inside the Matrix, a simulated reality that intelligent machines have created to distract humans while using their bodies as an energy source. Almost a little more understandable when you watch the movie. When computer programmer Thomas Anderson, under the hacker alias Neo, uncovers the truth, he joins a rebellion against the machines along with other people who had been freed from the Matrix. This movie opened up in theaters on March 31st, 1999, so like 25 years ago, which is crazy, to widespread acclaim from critics who praised its innovative visual effects, action sequences, cinematography, and entertainment value. The film was a box office success, grossing over $460 million on a $63 million budget. I would assume it's probably made so much more money even like since then. It's become the highest, at the time, became the highest grossing Warner Brothers film and the fourth highest grossing film of that year. It was also the winner of 4 Academy Awards. Actually, the winner of 4 Academy Awards, those type of awards, but not to even be nominated as the best picture. So this film's success led to 2 feature film sequels. The Matrix franchise was further expanded through the production of comic books, video games, and an animated anthology film, The Animatrix, with which the Wachowskis were heavily involved. The franchise has also inspired books and theories expanding on some of the religious and philosophical ideas alluded to in the films. A 4th film titled, which you had mentioned, The Matrix Resurrections, was released on December 22nd, 2021. Okay, so a lot of a lot of setup there, but I mean, this movie when it came out had such a huge impact, and and a lot came from that. So before we actually talk about the movie itself, talking about all these like sequels and all that kind of stuff. Have you liked this franchise so much? Have you seen the other installments of this movie?
Well, I can't say I love the franchise. I was pretty disappointed with Resurrections. I kind of got what they were trying to do. They got kind of meta there in the beginning and with the way it opens, but I think there was a lot of world building that was trying to happen, a lot of backstories they tried to create, and particularly the third film, Reloaded, I think.
Yeah.
The way it was dealing with Zion and the real world, that to me that was the least interesting part of the entire franchise. And so by that time it had really slowed itself down, in my opinion. And the second one actually had some interesting ideas and thoughts. It was really cool, just visually. But I think it just got worse and worse and worse as it went along.
Yeah, I can't initially remember when I saw the movie, but I know so I was a junior in high school when it came out, and so it was just one of those. I feel like I saw this first one a lot of times in a kind of time frame. So when I went to Baylor, and DVDs were becoming popular, it was like almost like a DVD that every guy had in that dorm room or whatever like that. And so I remember when the second one released in the theaters that we went and saw it, and I hardly remember anything from it. I remember the 2 like white ghost twins with dreads.
That's right.
And like a highway sequence. And then a big like raves scene that was like made fun of for a really long time. But like, I think I was kind of so turned off by the second one. I never even saw the third movie, and I haven't seen any of the other stuff ever. So
okay, so you're not a fan, I guess.
Well, I am a fan of this movie.
Yes.
But yeah, for me, it kind of came off the wheels pretty fast. I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, and so I think something has to be like really compelling for me to like latch onto it. I would say I'm horror's kind of similar like that for me. Like I like a good horror movie if there's like a lot of meat there, which I like to think this movie does. But like if it, if it's has all these other elements, it's, I know, I know a lot of people are talking about this new Netflix series, Three Body Problem.
Three-Body Problem.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book, but it sounds really interesting, and I might check it out. I'm not the biggest sci-fi person, and this one is more fantasy than science, I think.
Yes.
But I am a huge horror fanatic, and so those are both things. If you have interest in talking about, I will talk to you all day about those. So
yeah.
And so I should say, I saw it May 1999 on a totally platonic non-date with my wife's best friend, my future wife's best friend, at the Galaxy 16 in Valley Mills Drive in Waco, Texas. I was
nice.
I was a junior at Baylor. There was a lot of buzz coming out around this film.
Yeah.
From the free. So, and just so everyone knows, because some of your listeners you had a free weekly in Dallas and in Austin that you could read. And then there was like a website called ain'titcoolnews.com, which started in 96. I don't recommend it. It's a terrible site. It's now defunct, but it was a very web 1.0 site, and they were constantly reporting on new films. And so I think I probably read a lot up on it at that point. What's really crazy, and I was thinking about this, was it opened in March 31st, 1999. So it had been in theaters for like 4 or 5 weeks before I saw it. And I don't know if that was because it didn't get to Waco, which is very possible. But I was like, what in the world? Why was there such a gap if it was such a big deal? And then I looked at the releases, and there really wasn't much released in wide release in those 5 weeks. So I don't think it really had much to compete with. And back then, movies had time to breathe. Now it's like 2-3 weeks in, and then they're gone. Back then, you could get a movie run for like 4 or 5 weeks because there was only about 2 major releases a week. But here's the interesting part. April 20th, 1999, 2 12th graders from Columbine High School, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, walk in and murder 12 students and 1 teacher in the deadliest mass shooting at a K through 12 school in history. At the time, I hate to say, at the time, we sat there, we were glued to CNN for hours, this horrific story. I think The Matrix could have been sort of buried by that. And today, if it had been released, certainly would have been pulled post-April if something like that had happened. Specifically because there's a scene in which Neo and Trinity shoot up a building atrium with a massive arsenal, hundreds of rounds. And what is Neo wearing? A black trench coat, the same as Harrison Klebold. And I mean, it would be truly triggering today for some people, I think. And now, from an action standpoint, it's one of the marquee set pieces of the movie.
Right.
Like, it is like all the way through to the helicopter. So I have this really weird relationship with that because I love that scene, but it is really disturbing when you think about it at what was going on at the time. So, that's a long way of saying I caught it a little late. We saw it in theaters. It was out in DVD by September of that year, and I'm sure we had a copy, but
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely like the 2 big things with this movie. One, just how groundbreaking it was just in the visuals. I think, especially, I mean, we could talk about this a little bit later. I feel like it's a movie that like really holds up. Like, I feel like, new eyes saw it today. There's not much like gap there, except, there are some 90s stuff a little bit with the, the music and that sort of thing. But one of those things being especially the cryptic kind of green code that you would constantly see. And then, even though this was May 99 or March and then May 99, it's on the heels of Y2K. And I feel like the visuals of the numbers and everything like that was just like any kind of news station 2020 that was talking about Y2K, like that was the background of the visuals. So it kind of hit on this big, like kind of, I mean, it's a little past the like tech bubble, but it's kind of like a especially a time where, the internet is starting to gain momentum, I would say. As far as I remember, like going to Baylor, and it was like, it'd be funny to see actually how fast the speeds were. But this was the first time I saw people like, downloading movies and sharing files and that sort of thing. So, but then what you just talked about, I think that was another thing, especially people around our age, is just like, then it wasn't so much copycats after Columbine, but, you always had maybe kind of the strange kid that you always kind of kept an eye out for, and then they're wearing a black trench coat like to your high school.
Exactly.
It was like it kind of became like a rebellious symbol, which is probably not what this movie was setting out to do. But yeah, no, for sure. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was like one thing I definitely remember from this movie was kind of a lot of the controversy that came like from it, and that the big conversation around how violence is depicted in movies, especially having thousands of guns at your disposal.
Like
Yeah.
literally, we get a scene where the arsenal shows
Yeah.
up in the. I wanted to go back and something you said about that the opening scene, and I saw it, by the way, recently. Went to the theater, I think last week, for the 25th anniversary release last Wednesday. And it was in Dolby Sound, or
Yeah.
whatever the Dolby Digital Sound, which it was just amazing to see it. When you see a movie that's that familiar, it's not like revelatory, but
Right.
boy, to get to the experience again, and you start looking at how things were shot and the close-ups, and we'll get to this in a little bit. The choices that were made on from a director standpoint, what they chose to show is really interesting. But it opens with digital green, like as you said, this
Yeah.
numbers, and this ringing, sort of screeching ringing, which to me was synonymous with the 90s connecting to the internet in our 56K baud modem. That was just how we got on at home. And so that was just so familiar. It was just our generation, frankly.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that really connects people to, people watching it. Newer generations are like, whatever, it probably seems kind of dated, but
Yeah.
boy, that was like really connected. I agree with you.
Yeah. I forgot. I kind of forgot the aspect, especially now with like AI becoming such a big talking point. Like currently, like my mind always naturally goes to Terminator 2. And
Absolutely.
like,
Totally.
and that's kind of the movie I feel like people call back to a lot. But I forgot that this movie touches on the fact that it's AI that created these machines and essentially this like whole world. I was like, oh, hey, look how topical the Matrix is being right now.
In fact, Nathan, I think one of the lines has something, when it goes in the movie, it mentions that AI created it. It got actually a laugh in the theater last week, because people are like, because we're living in this chat GPT world, so like people are hyper aware.
Yeah.
The AI, but I don't think we're gonna get there yet. But it is funny to think that's what this is all based on.
Yeah. One thing I definitely, so watching this, it's been a pretty large gap since I can't even tell you when I saw it last. At least I hadn't logged it in Letterboxd before. So however long it's been since I've joined that, but, it was fun for me to watch because I clearly remembered like certain scenes, like for sure. And, I was kind of surprised with like how familiar the movie felt, and it was just kind of fun to like, I mean, I definitely remembered like where it was going, but like I had completely forgotten the whole like even setup with just like Carrie-Anne Moss's character and that whole action sequence. Like my mind almost had always just gone to Keanu Reeves, and there's a pretty impressive like action set piece like just right at the beginning. That's a lot of fun. But one thing I just kind of enjoyed is like, there's so much exposition in this movie. There's so much. There's so much explaining of what's happening, but they do a wonderful job of like framing it in creative ways. So even when Neo is again plugged into the Matrix, just the visuals, of them like on those red couches with the white backgrounds, it's almost like it and it makes you think, but there's also so much visually like going on. You don't get too caught up into like, even at the times where this movie, especially the action pieces the whole time. And I'm sitting there going like, wait, okay, they're in the Matrix world, not the real world. I don't know. It's that type of movie where I'm constantly making sure I'm kind of following the beats of it a little bit.
I'm glad you brought that up because, and this is just like a little tip out there, folks, when you're watching a film, if there's a maxim that says show, don't tell. Okay.
Mhm.
So if you can explain what's going on with visuals and not have to tell people, you're watching a pretty smart movie. So much so that Denis Villeneuve, the director of Dune, kind of got in trouble, I think a couple weeks ago, for saying he thinks movies don't even need dialogue. Like they shouldn't need dialogue. They should be that good.
Yeah.
So he gets it. I don't know if I agree, but he really understands it's a visual medium and you have to show. And so anytime somebody says, what is the Matrix? Well, the Matrix is like, that would be a terrible way to explain it. But so many movies do this where it's just obvious exposition dump. And so I agree with you. Like they do a wonderful job of just using the storytelling to sort of bring you along. Now it's a lot to absorb.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a few times to like kind of, in so much, in fact, I have some questions for you later about the Oracle, which I still to this day I'm not sure I understand how the Oracle works, but we can talk about it a little bit. I just want to ask too, I want to say
the Oracle is very convenient. Yeah. For plot purposes.
Maybe that's what it is. But I want to say, like you mentioned that Trinity in the opening sequence is fighting some cops. And this is another thing that kind of bugs me a little bit is they're always fighting perceived police officer type people, which I think is like kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it is like somebody in the Matrix that they can fight has guns, I guess. I don't know. But the famous sequence where she sort of does this crane kick and it's a 360 degree.
Yeah.
That y'all don't have any idea, like that was such a huge I mean I think we had like Star Wars episode 1 a year prior to that.
Yeah.
I still thought what the Matrix was doing was like miles beyond anything that George Lucas had done.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that, but they had set up, I think it was like, if you looked at the making of it, like a 360 degree structure around Carrie-Anne Moss's character and took still images and then married the whole thing together. So it was just like, it's insane the kind of inventive visual effects that they were trying here.
Yeah. And we've talked about kind of the cultural impact of this movie, and that's definitely another aspect I'm glad you mentioned I was going to touch on, was just like how much it influenced other movies after this. Certainly action movies, definitely sci-fi movies, but I don't know how accurate the stat was, but it said like that this kind of camera movement was like parodied over 20 times, which I completely
believe it.
Like the one I always go to is like Shrek. Like,
oh really?
Yeah. There's a fight scene in there, and the princess, the camera, revolves around her before she kicks somebody. It seemed like everybody was touching like on this movie, and kind of that visual aspect of those scenes definitely stand out. And I mean, I honestly think are just still like really cool. Like they're used. Someone could definitely argue maybe too much in this movie, but I actually thought like it was neatly used, kind of sparingly, So, but not even that. Just the kung fu fighting sequence between Neo and Morpheus. It's just like visually, like they're fighting, but the way it's like smooth fighting of like how precise all their moves are, and even to some points, you talked about this movie is pretty void of comedy for a lot of it, but I even do like the part like where Neo towards the end starts fighting him while just kind of looking away, just standing there, and just like, just, I don't know.
Yeah. By the end, Neo is like doing kata and he's like putting his hand out and kind of doing the come here to some of the agents. And that's like even a little bit cringe today because just it's coming. But I think that fight scene that you mentioned, it's funny, I wrote that down. That that training in the dojo was I thought one of the most engaging set pieces in the
Oh yeah.
movie because
Yeah.
when they run in the kitchen or the eating area, and they're like, Neo and Morpheus are fighting, and they all like, it's a hilarious scene of seeing them just clear the table and run to go see this fight. And so Wu Ping Yun is the fight choreographer. Of course, he is a famous director in Hong Kong action cinema. He comes over. I don't even know how they got him to do this, frankly. Somebody knew somebody, obviously, because these are really basically unknown filmmakers. And he does wire work, and then literally the next year, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon comes out and
Yeah.
just makes it super famous, and everybody's doing wire work at that point. So I mean, it really had. This was like for American cinema. This was a tipping point in action.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and I think definitely, I mean, all the innovative techniques that this movie, truly think it was a movie when you started watching it, you had no idea like where it was going or how it was going to end. I mean, you could probably, predict like even with like most movies. I kind of kid with my youngest because she doesn't like anything like scary is not even the right term. Even if it's like a comedy and something bad happens to somebody, she kind of freaks out. And I'm not like, these are our heroes. This, they will be okay. And so, are you ever really truly concerned that Neo is not going to make it out of this world? Probably not. But I do think there's some aspects of like, you're not sure about Morpheus, and,
right.
things like that, but I do think that's kind of what makes this like, and it's a movie that definitely moves, but it also is very like, it has like very memorable set pieces, and
Absolutely.
all those set pieces are like memorable in their own ways. So it's just like it just goes from one thing to another and just kind of builds upon itself, and it just provides for very entertaining ride. I forgot to look at the exact runtime.
I was gonna say,
movie.
I think it's like a 2 hour. I remember sitting in the theater, and it's about a 2 hour, maybe 10. I don't even know if it's that long. The pacing is just breakneck. I mean,
Yeah.
you are moving from one thing to the next. And really the only time I feel like it slows down a little bit is the Oracle scene.
Yes.
And they try to overcome that because they build in as soon as the Oracle scene is over, the agents are on top of them and they're trying to escape. And then that's when they dovetail it actually pretty nicely with Cypher murdering, Twitch, and who are all the people here? We got
Dozer,
and I have the name. I couldn't remember all the names, but
they all sound like American Gladiator names.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
yeah, there's
It's Switch and APOC and
Mouse.
Mouse.
APOC. Yeah.
I do want to talk about, because we're mentioning these minor characters. This is one thing I really was impressed by. And it's really apparent if you see on the big screen. The directors are really generous with their screen time with the minor characters, and so much so that even through the script, they gave them like kind of meaty things to say at times, and we get a lot of screen time with the minor characters.
Mm-hmm.
So like we get a lot of Tank during Neo's training.
Yeah,
it's like, this is a very exciting time.
Yeah,
he has. I don't know. I really like that character. And he kind of saves the day there at the end.
Yeah. No, I don't know if this is just like me being attached to, this time in my life, but I felt like movies, especially late 90s movies, like action, I'm thinking of Con Air and like movies, like this, they were very good at like setting up these supporting characters, like you said, that are very memorable from a very short, like screen time perspective, so like I remembered Mouse, and
Mouse has the greatest scene talking about the tasty wheat, or the bowl of snot, as it's referred to. And I love that scene, and that actor, Matt Dorn is his name, and I haven't seen him in much since then, but he has like I don't know how much time they just let him just riff on this, and it's awesome. is oatmeal or tuna fish. This whole line.
Yeah. I just want to say, like, probably the thing I actually remember most about this movie, which is kind of a funny moment, but it is when Cypher, played by Joey Pants, is having the steak dinner.
Do we have a deal, Mr. Reagan?
I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realize? Ignorance is bliss.
Honestly, like that scene, like I think about that all the time whenever I'm in a nice restaurant eating something. But personally, if somebody were to come down and say, the truth is there's the Matrix and it's making you, think this is a steak that you're tasting, I'm okay with that. I don't know how you. I'd be like, you know what? I'm definitely not the red pill person in this scenario. I'd be like, I think I'm going to take that blue pill.
So let's talk about. I think this is really interesting. So let's get into a little bit because Cypher is one of the bad guys, right?
Right. Yeah.
But he's one of these cultural operators, and he's really an opportunist. And he really just ultimately regrets his decision to leave once he finds out the world is just this crusading social justice warriors and true believers like Morpheus who believe in this like savior, like Neo. And so this is a weird take, but I thought about this is a modern take on Cypher that he's kind of like a MAGA character in the end, in that he just wants to go back to the way things were that he liked and enjoyed and was comfortable. Yeah. And he wants to take everyone down on the way. So that's my modern reading on Cypher, is that he's kind of like a modern MAGA.
I hope you're not making a connection that like that means I am a
no totally different reading, but I agree with you that like, yes, I mean, in one reading is that it's just the comfortable world and like the ignorance is bliss. It's like one of the famous lines, right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. No, you're not like Cypher also killed people in the movie. So
yeah. And very, very slowly, I might add. Yes. That was another scene. I was just like, would you, waiting to take out the most important people towards the end, but I mean, it's a movie. You have to do such things. And I think, Lawrence Fishburne, I probably, even though he had done lots of stuff up to this movie, this was probably one of the first things that he was definitely like, I knew who he was, but kind of probably the first movie I saw him, in a completely starring role. And I mean, he nails the tone perfectly. And I do kind of I almost found like a little humor in it, and they almost, they don't razz him about it a whole lot, but just the fact that he like solely believes like that Neo is the one. And I just love how like just dead set loyal he is to that. And nothing will ever like change his mind about it.
So what you're telling me is that, unlike me, I thought, what is Cowboy Curtis from Pee-wee's Playhouse doing in this movie? And where did his hair go? Because I knew Lawrence Fishburne as Cowboy Curtis from the Saturday morning show. And then, I hadn't seen Apocalypse Now at that point, I don't think. In fact, I think kind of is the first time he really comes on the scene, Lawrence Fishburne, in terms of like a box office hit. But I hadn't seen him much either. And then now he's been in everything, CSI and Blackish and countless movies. So
yeah. And then I thought, I can't help but touch on Keanu Reeves in this movie. Is interesting.
Legendary.
Legendary. I think that And definitely I think we've now come, especially with the how
John Wick.
popular how popular John Wick is. I think a lot of people have come around on Keanu Reeves, me actually being like one of them, and so I really truly, and so I don't know, I didn't get caught up in so much the things that people were making fun of so much back then, like with this movie. I mean, there's definitely the one like first like whoa, which is just great.
Yep. It got
But
a lot of laughs. A lot of laughs in the theater last week.
But I really do think he's like perfect for this part. Like, he's kind of like, he's bright-eyed, but also you believe that he could, like for better terms, kick ass like he does in this movie. Like you believe like all the things about him. And I read that like, and I read this from different sites, so it must be somewhat true. But like, apparently, Will Smith was up for this, and he decided.
Oh, really?
He decided not to do it because he apparently this movie because not that people didn't enjoy like the script or see, they were a little scared of all the technology that was needed to make it happen, and it made a lot of people really nervous about committing to the movie. Which kind of like completely makes sense, like almost they basically didn't want to be in something that I would say hasn't aged, and clearly this movie has aged really well, So I don't know. Do you like him in this part?
Yeah. So I had looked at the IMDb page, of course, and he had a really good run in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it looked like trying out different things. With Point Break, we had Johnny Utah, he was a cop. And then he kind of like My Own Private Idaho and Bram Stoker's Dracula. He's kind of like Much Ado About Nothing. He's like all over the place and just trying things out. And then he makes Speed in 94. And you're like, oh, dude, this guy can do some action. And then Johnny Mnemonic. I mean, there's a few that were like a little odd. Then Devil's Advocate right before The Matrix. And I think ultimately what we've discovered about Keanu is he's better when he's not talking, kind of, sadly.
Right.
It's so much, in fact, that John Wick, he doesn't have a lot of dialogue. In fact, I think John Wick 4, he barely has any dialogue.
Yeah.
But it's just funny to me that and this is brilliant on his part, but I really do think with John Wick, we really are just walking back Neo to a certain degree. It is a bit similar. I mean, it's world building and it's action, and that's really his wheelhouse. Obviously, he's been successful and made a lot of money. And we don't have to get into that here. You can just go to any internet search and find out how he made tens of millions of dollars off The Matrix just on taking the back end points. Is stunning.
Oh wow!
I mean, he made a fortune before he even made John Wick, and he's made a fortune with John Wick.
Yeah,
so the man is like rich beyond belief.
I can't help but touch. You actually mentioned it at the very beginning, but we kind of joked about you like not wanting to come on and talk about a rom-com, and then when I was watching this movie, and I honestly I hadn't forgotten about like what Trinity had a stake into, like what the Oracle said as well and stuff like that. But anyway, I just kind of laughed because I was like, oh yeah, I guess this is kind of rom-com. Not really, but I will say that the leap, not the leap of like these two would like, want to be with each other, but where maybe it's just like projecting. She knows like he's supposed to be the one, so maybe that's why she loves him so much. But the amount of time they spend with, I mean, honestly, Neo spends way more time with Morpheus than he does with Trinity.
He does, and Trinity doesn't have a lot of options. You got Tank and Dozer. Cypher's tried. He swung and missed. We all know that. I mean, I don't know what her options are, and I don't know if Zion really has, what options they are there. Maybe that's why she continues to like go on the search for her missing future partner. So she'll finally find somebody out there. But okay, so you mentioned the Oracle who tells Trinity you're going to fall in love with the one. The Oracle, if we can just take a minute and talk about that. So Gloria Foster is the actress who plays her. I argue she may have given the best performance in this movie. I'm not sure she knows she's in the Matrix movie. It's almost like a different movie. Just so weird. She's the only real character in besides maybe some few intro characters in the Matrix when Neo's talking to some guys at his door, but she's really the only character in the Matrix that we interact with.
Yeah.
And so she's sort of starring in, to me, a sort of a different movie, and that's why I say it breaks the pace. But here's where my question to you, Nathan, is: they're interacting with the Oracle who exists in the Matrix. The agents don't seem to meddle with her, even though she's cultivating kids who can manipulate space and time. Where are these people? Are they a battery in the real world, or are they just like, I don't understand how she exists in the Matrix?
If you're looking to me to answer this, you're asking the wrong person.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a very interesting point, which I will say I didn't think about that too much. It is interesting.
You're saying I overthink things?
No, it's just it's a great point, because I definitely overthink things. I overthink things like with rom-coms and stuff. It's actually probably like more sci-fi stuff where I like can let go of that type of stuff. I'm kind of like, if somebody's writing a sci-fi movie, they have clearly gone to a different like part of their brain that I don't go to. So I'm just there with it, with them. I'm trusting kind of what they're giving to me. But yeah, that's a good point as far as like, why didn't the agents just take out this room full?
Right.
Prodigies. Yeah. That's a very good point.
But maybe this explains why you don't really like the subsequent films, because they go through pains to like try to explain, well, the Matrix was created by the architect, and then there's this key master.
Yeah,
and it's like, huh? I mean, it's like interesting, but then, and they have to keep it all going with action, or otherwise you get really bored.
Right. Yeah.
One other big takeaway for me culturally, I think this killed the mid to late 90s cis white male obsession with swing music and swing dancing and swing culture, because I really did. I don't know if it was as we got closer to like Y2K, all that just kind of went away. And maybe that's what fads do, right? They come and go. But I just remember like, oh, now goth culture.
Yeah.
To me, I don't know what this aesthetic is. I think it's like kind of goth meets Euro trash. I mean, it's some weird costume design. Cool costume design, but it's just odd. And so, and then I noted in your review on Letterboxd, you talked about the industrial metal vibe.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's held up. But it's popular then, I think.
Movie Musings.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions for you. Is like,
okay,
were you a fan of that movie, that type of music?
You know what? It's funny. Like, yes and no. I think there was a popularity around sort of like dance techno, but it wasn't. I didn't like Rob Zombie or White Zombie or what it was, which is very much this.
Yes.
So I wasn't into that, but to me it worked. If this had been like Fred Durst and new metal, I think that would have killed it. It would not have been cool. But as you know, no, that was also really popular at the time. So they made the right decision.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you saying that, just kind of about this music and stuff. It made me think about, Woodstock 99 happened at this time, and kind of what we talked about, like, even like the Columbine, there was a lot of focus on angry white males.
Right.
And for some reason, really giving them an outlet to express themselves. And and this music was definitely like a big part of that. So this was not the type of music I would listen to all the time, for sure. I will say I do like Rage Against the Machine. That
was great.
That closes out this song. Yeah, great needle drop there. But like these other songs, maybe there might be a song on like a playlist for like a working out playlist, like occasionally or something like that. But to like be like, oh, I'm gonna go out and buy the Matrix soundtrack. I wasn't quite there with this, with that. So but did you have any other like points to that you had down?
Oh, let's see. Let me just clean up my. I mean, like certainly from a. Well, one. Okay, here's another cultural item. We got some very cool eyewear and shades in the film.
Yeah.
That I most certainly tried to mirror the 10 years after that. I'm sure everything I bought was like, "Was this in the Matrix?" That would be pretty cool. Now, I'm a little disappointed we haven't gotten rid of the ear loopless Morpheus shades. But maybe those are just a little too ridiculous. But it never did catch on to just get a
Yeah.
pinched, no ear. I don't know what you call it, ear loops,
Yeah.
shades.
Yeah. So that segues actually into another movie musings question I have for you. Is there a fashion choice that you personally made in the 99 2000 area that like you regret?
Oh, that I regret. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, let's see. I had a chain wallet.
Oh yeah. Oh,
The
okay. Yeah.
wallet. This again. Now this is more of the function of the swingers era.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had, and my wife's gonna love this. The wallet was had flames on it. It was a black
Oh.
leather wallet with flames, and then I did get an eyebrow ring around that time
Oh.
for a hot minute. My grandfather loved it. Let me tell you. So yeah, I made some, but I mean, it was like 2021, so
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a time to explore.
Yeah. You don't come across as a piercing
No
guy
way.
to me.
I mean, again, you just trying stuff out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there weren't a lot of piercings in this movie, if I remember
No,
right.
no, no, not really. I would. Were there even like many like tattoos? Even I don't.
Only the beginning, the white rabbit tattoo.
Yeah,
Folks open
yeah,
up his door. They're kind of that. It's that kind of goth, whatever
yeah,
they're going for. But
yeah.
that's one other thing I just want to say was this is another thing people don't relate to today. But they come to Neo's door at the beginning. These people, he's obviously created some kind of hack for them. He
Mm,
puts it on a hard drive, like a disc.
yeah.
And all I could think of was like the old zip drives. Like
Uh-huh.
I put all my papers on in college and turned in. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, that was a thing, folks. And it was like, it's weird now. It's all
yeah, yeah.
cloud, obviously. But hacker culture was like a thing that was like cool. I didn't know any hackers.
Right, you're right.
It was a cool idea, but I don't really think that. Do you know that I don't feel like that exists in our culture much anymore. I know it's out there, but I just don't feel like
Yeah,
it's
I mean, there's definitely like, yeah, I mean, cyber criminals and that sort of thing. Yeah, there was even a movie, yeah, called Hackers, I think, and
that was. Oh my gosh, yes, I
it
think
was
there was.
definitely, it was definitely, like, it was definitely kind of a moment, like for sure. Yeah, for sure. I remember these green numbers, as screensavers on a lot of people, people's computers after this movie.
Yeah, Hackers was Angelina Jolie.
Yeah,
And
yeah, there you go.
Johnny Lee Miller.
Yeah, there you go.
Not a movie I've seen, and probably will not seek it out. One other thing, just the sound design obviously won an Oscar.
Yeah, yeah.
And I will say, when I think that the scene that has stuck with me the longest is literally probably kind of the most visceral, when Neo is unhooked from the Matrix and he touches that mirror, and he kind of gets the metallic. I don't know what you call it. It kind of becomes Silver Surfer, and we've seen that kind of special effects before. So that part was like, oh, that's kind of cool, but that wasn't interesting. But when it goes down his throat and they use the sound, it goes from like kind of an analog to a digital sound.
Yeah,
I was like, it is like emblematic of our generation coming into the digital age. I know that's like bombastic thing to say, but it literally like does say like we have crossed this threshold. We're coming out of the Matrix, which maybe you could read it as we're leaving this analog world. We're selling passwords to illegally downloaded audio, music. I mean, it's a new day and age. And I think that this movie, I think that's why people just look back on it. It's like there's a line drawn in the sand because it's very real cultural statement that was mirroring what was happening out there in the world.
Yeah. No. So one last question I had for you, kind of moving musings question. We talked a little bit about the dojo scene. If you could have one skill immediately downloaded into your brain, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, okay. this is more of like, this is along the lines of the superpower question, right?
Right. It
And
is.
and
Yeah.
for me, I would download all of the world's languages and
Oh.
be able to understand and speak them, because I always thought that'd be the coolest superpower, because connection and communication verbally
Mhm.
is like such a bridge builder.
Oh yeah.
And when you are able to talk and someone's, speaking their language, it just all of a sudden it's disarming, right?
Mhm.
Just the
Yeah.
walls come down and you can talk.
Mhm.
So to me, that's always the coolest thing. So if I could just download all the languages, that's what I do.
Yeah. Well,
Not very cool. I couldn't do kung fu, but I could
no,
talk to you.
no, that's a great one. I like that. You would kill on the Amazing Race, like
Oh, that's a family favorite of ours. We love the Amazing Race,
yeah,
and yes, it would come in handy.
yeah, it's become a family favorite of ours too. Like we definitely didn't watch it for a really long time, and it was probably around COVID or something. It was kind of like, yeah,
Yes.
let's watch this, and yeah, we did it with our kids, even though I'm kind of going off a little bit, but here. The 90-minute show is a little long, but it's one of those like, and I love Survivor too, huge Survivor fan.
Okay.
And they've been doing 90-minute episodes, and that's something like fans have been clamoring for a long time. And I love Survivor, and it's one of those like I can't complain about having more Survivor, but when you watch a 90-minute episode, you're like, oh, I see why they were 60 minutes now, But
Exactly.
yeah, but well, like definitely as far as kind of just wrapping up our discussion about this movie, I is one of those I even asked, because this is definitely not a type of movie that Whitney would watch at all. And I was like,
Oh
have
no.
you seen The Matrix? And she's like, oh yeah. Like, so
Okay.
I think for like our age, it was just like it didn't
Yeah.
matter what it was. Like people just like went and saw it. But I do think if for some reason somebody hasn't seen this before, I think it's a very entertaining movie. I think it is challenging. Like I'm not someone who's big for like on conspiracy theories or going down wormholes, but it is something that like does like make you think. But I mean, I was pretty amazed by like how well it held up, and I really think I can separate like just my nostalgic feelings for the movie and just like watching it like on the surface as it is now. I'm jealous that you got to see it in the theater. I bet that was pretty neat to see.
Well, Nathan, I saw it in the theater just last week. Maybe talk to your local theater owners about bringing it.
Yeah, I saw that. Like we have Regal theaters around us. Like here in Oklahoma, we don't have as many access as the theaters like you do in Dallas, the Dallas area.
That's
But
true. That's true.
yeah, but I think the Regal Theater I saw was doing some special screenings of them and stuff like that. And so,
Well, to be fair, it was like a one night only thing. But yeah, it has had. I did check Box Office Mojo. It has had 2 releases. I don't know if for the 20th they did more of a wide. But it's been out there a couple times now. Obviously, the first release, but I'm not sure if I'll sit my kids down and say, "Well, now it's time to watch The Matrix." I don't know. Like it's a personal film, and it means something to me at a particular time.
yeah,
And I always feel that way about a lot of things. It's kind of an ephemeral world we live in. So things that were important, 1983, Return of the Jedi was pretty amazing, but I don't know if it was so important for me to like sit my kids down and watch it. Like some people feel very strongly about that.
yeah,
I do not share that view. I think Marvel means a lot to kids of a certain generation. I could
Mhm.
care less about Marvel. Just didn't
Right,
strike me. But
yeah.
Recommendations.
So I always like to ask our guests, anything else you're just kind of like really digging and watching right now?
absolutely, I knew you'd ask this. Make sure I prepare. There's 2 films that I've really loved, totally different from The Matrix. Past Lives,
Yes,
which I don't think is streaming. I think I mean, you can buy it or rent it. I
it's
think I had
on
to rent
it's
it.
on Paramount Plus.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, well, that's good because there's another one I mentioned that's also on Paramount Plus. But Past Lives is like just the perfect depiction of like a
Mhm.
sliding doors moment in film. And it's about, for people that don't know, it's about these 2 adults that grew up. They just haven't been able to connect because the timing in their lives haven't worked out, but they are just meant for one another, sort of a universe meant for them to be together. And what works about the film is there's this tension that holds throughout the film that is just so perfect. And when the final moments happen in the film, you are just wrecked. I mean, it is a devastating release for both the characters and for the audience at home. I was like, I'll admit, I was in tears. It's amazing. Have you seen it?
Yeah, no, I did
It's
see it.
phenomenal.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it's actually a movie. Like it just because it came out in early summer, and it just kept the legs like into Oscar season. And I
Right.
know it didn't win like huge awards there, but like I've been surprised by how many people have watched it, and I would say enjoy it because
Absolutely.
it's not like I mean, it's a very quiet movie. It's kind of just restored some faith in the movie goer experience, like for me, that like people are willing to watch a movie that's so contemplative, like Past Lives. Yeah, it's a great movie.
Zone of Interest, of course, got a lot of, I think, got the best foreign language film, maybe.
Yeah, best
Jonathan
international. Yeah.
Glazer. I mean, it is, talk about sound design.
Mhm.
It's intense. And then really the one I want to sing the praises for, please seek out Showing Up. It's a Kelly Reichardt film. I love Kelly Reichardt. She's just this American director. She directs these very small films, probably no more than $10 to $20 million. She directed First Cow a few
Yeah.
years ago. Meek's Cut Off, Wendy and Lucy. Her muse is Michelle Williams, who, as you know, is just like one of the best actors working today. But Showing Up is like Kelly Reichardt's films are like a warm blanket, is all I can say. There's some tension. She directs dramas. There's not a lot of tension. I think the most tension I had was worrying about whether a basketball was going to fly into this artist's sculptures. So it was like the most intense things that happens. But like they're quiet, mundane conversations and everyday life scenarios, and it's just kind of like a hangout movie. They're a little plotless, but they are so human.
Mhm.
And that's all I can say is, like, if you just want a quiet, warm blanket of a movie, they're very interesting, and it's phenomenal. Michelle
Yeah.
Williams is a revelation. Michelle Williams, because I did hear you all talk about best actor, female actor on the last one. I mean, she's gonna win an Oscar at some point. She's been nominated 7 times.
Yeah, it's crazy she
Um,
hasn't.
And so the Fablemans, which she was just amazing as Mitzi Fableman,
Yeah.
she's playing a totally different character. So I mean, you want to talk about range? She's got incredible range. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's I know that movie. I just a lot of podcasts to listen to kind of made their top of the year list and stuff like that. So yeah,
Showing Up, and it's
yeah.
also on Paramount Plus.
Okay. Nice.
So
Yeah, that'd be good. So I'm kind of you might could steal my movie podcaster card here. I was trying to look through like what I could recommend, and honestly, I just haven't watched anything really new right now. The NCAA tournament has been like both the men's and women's basketball has been eating up all my attention lately. So I will say that is my recommendation because almost more so this is the year to watch the women's tournament. Like lots of great, it's weird to say characters, but it kind of almost is a throwback to, we were talking about like when this movie came out, but kind of reminds you of the Christian Laettner, like in Duke, and like
Right.
there's these like athletes this year, that, and so far most of those teams are still winning and they'll eventually play each other. And so anyway, that's what I've been watching. And so anyway, but definitely I think the women's more so than the men's, there's not as many surprises usually. So if you're not a huge sports fan and you're just holding out, I bet you the Final Four will be pretty entertaining. There's some really just amazing athletes right now. And I love the way, probably having 2 girls doesn't help that I've gotten more into female sports, but man, it's the time to kind of watch. And I'm glad people now are watching it. They're not as much separating as the two, but like Caitlin Clark on Iowa is drawing more numbers, higher numbers. They played West Virginia the other night, and it got like on a weeknight, what it was like 7 or something like that on ESPN, and it got like over 4.5 million viewers or
Wow.
something like that. Yeah, so it's crazy. So anyway, kind of neat things going on there. So I try not to talk too much sports on this podcast, but I have to throw that out
Yeah,
there.
the name of the podcast is Movies Are Life, right?
Yes.
So if they are life, stick with the movies on it. I will say we are dying relics, and our kind are going to go away probably within a generation. Because I mean, I don't watch nearly as much TV as a lot of people do. TV, that we're in the golden age of TV, or we may have been, and
I
I
think we
just
may have been.
yeah, we may have been, and like I don't know where the future is, but I know that the 90 to 120 minute, 150 minute sometimes storytelling format is probably a thing of the past. I hate to say it. I
Yeah.
love it because it's that economy of telling a story in a short amount of time. I
Yeah.
love it, but I grew up with it, so
Yeah. No, and I would say, yeah, especially, I mean, there's been some newer TV shows that have come out lately that I've wanted to like catch, but the time and commitment to it, and then, there's so many new things that come out, it's hard to keep up with that cycle. And yeah, there's something about a movie that's just like, even if it's a longer movie, like just spending time with that and kind of knowing that book is closed, there's something like almost real serene about it. So yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for doing this. So I'm glad I remembered that you do indeed enjoy movies.
you'll
And so
forget. You'll forget.
don't forget. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. So I'll have to come up with another fun one for us to talk about. This has been a lot of fun.
Certainly.
Yeah. So next week we are jumping back into the rom-com list. And I'm just curious, have you seen this one? Have you seen My Best Friend's Wedding?
Oh my gosh, I've never seen that, and
Okay.
I'm kind of like a badge of honor that I've never, because that's one that everyone has seen, and
Well,
somehow I made it without seeing it for 30 years or whatever.
Well, just as a tease to the listeners, I thought this was a movie I had seen. And when we started it the other night, I actually had not seen this movie. And so I had that badge and I didn't even know it. So anyway, so that'll be a real interesting conversation because I think I have kind of an interesting take on that movie. So make sure to check that out next week. But thanks again. This was so much fun.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I'll see you in the Matrix.
For sure. I'll be there.